Hi, I'm Jeff Phillips, and thanks for tuning in today. Today's guest is very special and near and dear to my heart. Today I have my wife, Tracy. And Tracy, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Why don't you explain to the viewers who you are and what it is that you do?
Okay. Hi, I'm Tracy Phillips. I am a holistic health coach and educator, and I work with people to balance the relationships in their lives so that the decisions that they make lead to a more healthy lifestyle.
Okay. Well, you talk about relationships and balance. So what is that, and how do people do it?
Yeah, that's a good question. So everything outside of ourselves, we have relationships with. So we have relationships with people. We have relationships with food. We have relationships with, whatever spirituality that we tap into. Even relationships with nature and how much we move our bodies, exercise, all of that. We interact through relationships. And what happens is when we're talking about health, real holistic health, we look at those relationships and how they are in or out of balance. It will determine decisions we make, which will lead to either more of the same or a change. And so when people come to me with a particular issue, really we're looking to get to the root cause. And so we talk about the relationships that they have in these areas and determine where there may be imbalance and what they can do about it.
Okay. All right. Well, interesting. Well, I wanted to switch gears a little bit and talk about cravings and, why do we have them? And I know in particular, when I go on a road trip, I always crave a particular type of food. Can you explain, why that happens?
So first of all, if you were a client, I would ask you, well, do you normally crave that food at other times, or is that specifically the time that you crave that particular food?
It's usually just at that particular time.
And so then I would ask you why.
Well, because it reminds me of a childhood memory.
And then if you were a client, I would continue along, that questioning to really get to the root. Because again, especially with food, when we talk about relationships, we actually break it down into what's called primary foods and secondary foods. And primary foods actually aren't food at all. They're everything we relate to other than food, everything we feed ourselves with other than food. So our relationships, again, with people, with our work, do we love it, do we not like it, amount of exercise, all of that I recently just talked about. And so, looking at where there is again, that balance, but why you're craving that food could be that was a time when you would be with your family, you would be doing something adventurous, you would be feeling that closeness, that bond, that love. And so those were the times that you ate the fast food or whatever the food was. And so that's a trigger for you. And so when you go on the road, in order to have that feeling again, you want to have that food. When really it's nothing about the food at all. It's about the feeling or the relationship that the food represents. So that's basically what a craving can be. Now, there's actually different kinds of cravings. There are nutritional-based cravings, so that's when we start to crave a particular food because there is some sort of nutrient in there that our body needs. But most of the cravings we deal with as a society now are actually the secondary, which I just talked about, which are called compulsive cravings. That's when we have this compulsive need to eat a particular thing or groups of foods, not, again, because we need that food, but because it represents something to us.
Yeah, and I know a lot of times when I crave it and then I get the food, I'm like, why am I craving this? This tastes terrible.
I know.
Weight and obesity is a major concern and for a lot of people. So what can you share with somebody who wants to actually lose weight?
Yeah, it's a big concern. In fact, most people, if it's not the main goal why they're coming to see me to lose weight, it's in the top 3. So there's different reasons why we hold weight. One is certainly our genetic disposition. We're born to a particular body type and where we hold our fat. But really, what we're dealing with obesity, that's not genetic. It's not in the genetic code. What that's due to is the other 2 types of reasons why we put on weight. And one is stress. Emotional reasons are big ones for weight. And, you take your example of somebody who has been has somehow been abused physically or emotionally in the past, and they will start to unconsciously put on weight as a way to literally create a barrier between themselves and their attacker or potential attacker. And that's a very tough weight unless you start to really unravel the cords of the emotional upset to get rid of. Another type of weight certainly that is somewhat involved in some ways with that, but also in other ways with just toxic overload. So what happens is in our culture, of course, we hear about this all the time. There are many, many toxins. There's toxins in our food, in our water, in our air, in our environment, not to mention the stress toxins. And if we're not adequately detoxing, getting those toxins out, the body has to deal with them in some way in order to preserve the body and the functioning. And so what happens is it will start to create fat cells in order to create that buffer. So you see a lot of people today, they hold a lot of fat in this middle region. Well, that's where we have our vital organs. And so that is toxic fat. As you learn to eat cleaner, live in a cleaner environment, do as much as you can to try to decrease the amount of toxins you're taking in, and you also learn to de-stress a little bit, you will find that fat will go away because the body doesn't need it anymore. As soon as the toxins aren't there, the body doesn't want to hold that fat and will release it. But it's a matter of doing all the other work. It's not about popping a pill. It's not about eating a certain food or not eating a certain food as much as it's the holistic view of the toxic overload that you might be dealing with.
Okay. So talking about toxins, what are a few food items that you consider toxic that no matter what you're doing, you should stay away from?
Yeah, well, the big one for me is sugar. And sugar is in everything, as we know. And sugar also, it's not just when we talk about sugar, table sugar, or refined sugars, that type of thing. It's literally what becomes sugar or glucose in our system. And so if you think of the carbs, not vegetable carbs, of course, we're talking about starchy vegetables, certainly can be higher in carb load, but we're talking about the refined carbohydrates. A lot of grain products, especially, will break down into glucose, and so the body becomes a glucose-burning machine as a fuel. It chooses glucose, and that is highly toxic for us. We talk, everybody knows about the insulin issues and all of that. So sugar, when we're talking about it, because it's in most of the things we eat, again, as glucose, we really need to be careful about what we're eating when it comes to that. The normal ones, fast food, soda, high fructose corn syrup is a real big issue. So those are the ones that most people know about anyway. But a lot of people don't think about the sugar issue the way that it is. And, really, I have my theories and all that I studied in dietary theory about how really sugar or glucose, the overabundance of glucose in the system is a root cause of almost all disease that we're dealing with. So.
Okay. Well, really fascinating information, and I know we could continue this conversation forever, but if some of the viewers are interested in what you had to say and possibly want to ask you some questions, where could they go?
The best way to get in touch with me is actually through my website, which is certainwaytowellness.com. And there you can register. All of my first sessions, initial sessions, are free. I do my initial health history consultations as a way to let people get to know what health coaching is kind of about, as well as me to get to know the potential client a little bit more. So you can sign up online, and certainly you can get in touch with me with any questions through my website.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you for coming in today. And we're also going to flash that website at the end of this video. So if you want more information, please check it out.